Well, hey all, this is Bill with Guillory Fine Art. Yesterday, my wife and I took a ride to the Morganza Spillway, and I wanted to show you all my process as far as importing in photos and culling out photos, rating them, and doing a little touch-up on a few of them. Basically, when I come back from a photo shoot, and I have a small photo shoot, basically one fitting on one card, I'll put the card in my PC and open up On1, and I'll go to File, Import from Device. Now On1 recognizes the compact flash card. It tags all of the images. You can see the check mark on them, and it gets ready to import in. On the far right, you can set up different parameters, and I have it set up to copy into two separate places. The first one is it's copying to my C drive working folder. I like working off of my C drive because it is a solid state drive, and it's quicker than my D drive. My second folder is D photos to transfer. I also have it set up for the name of the folder to put it in is going to be the year, month, date. I find that it keeps things simple and easy to find. And then I have to rename files. And On1, you can, while importing them in, you can rename the files. And I have that set up basically the same way as my folder. It's year, month, day, a dash, and then I have a sequence number of 4 digits. I don't think I will ever shoot 9,999 images in one day. I also have it checked off for metadata. You can add metadata when you're importing, and I have a preset for the metadata contact, so it will add my information, my contact information, and other things that I've set up in metadata to the file itself. So I'm going to hit import, and as you can see, it's already created the folder down here, the 220331, and down on the bottom you can see the progress bar. So I'm going to pause. This should only take a few minutes, but as I've said before, I'd like to keep all of my videos short and sweet. Okay, as you can see, it has created the folder on my C drive with all of the images. There's 206 images on my C drive, and on my D drive in photos to transfer. Scroll down, it's got the same images in that folder. So I do have a backup on my D drive. Now, I did notice that during the photo shoot, I changed my camera. I typically shoot in full size RAW all the time, and this time I've shot in full RAW, but I also added a JPEG halfway through the shoot, so there are JPEGs mixed in with my CR2 files, and I want to keep my JPEGs because I was doing a test and I want to check out the quality of the JPEGs later. But for right now, I just want my CR2 files. And it's really easily done. I can right-click on my folder. I can add a subfolder, and I will name it JPEG, JPG. Hit return. So now I have a folder JPEG. Okay, and now I have it set. I changed it set to display the file type. Normally it's in the file name, which would show the JPEG along with the CR2 files, but I changed that to display the file type. And what that did is at the very top it lists all of my CR2 files, and down on the bottom I just scroll down until I get to my JPEG files. Here's the end of my CR2 files and the beginning of my JPEGs. So I will select the first image, scroll down to the bottom, shift select the last image, and that selects all of my JPEGs. And then I just simply have to click on one image and move the whole bunch over to the folder JPEG. Now if I go in that folder, all of my JPEGs are in there. And I now have 113 or 112 CR2 files. So now all I want to do is go through and view the images, and let's see, give them an X. That one looks good. I'll give that one a 1. That's an X. And I just basically scroll through, deciding which images I want to keep and which images I want to delete. Now if I'm going to hit the G key again to go back to my grid view. Now let's say if we had several images typical, and I wanted to see the difference between these two. I hit the shift key, select the other one, and come down to my lower left. There's switch to compare view. And in the compare view I can compare the two of them. I have lock, pan, and zoom checked. So now whenever I zoom in on one, it zooms in on both images. And I can compare and move around and pan and look at the quality of both images. And it also gives me a film strip on the bottom so that I can go through and look at these. You can select more than 2, 4, or 5 of them. Come in and look at the quality of each one. Now if you wanted to, let's say if there's one of them that you know you do not want, let's say this one, if you hit the backwards slash on your keyboard, it removes it from the display. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to go through and rate all of my images with a 1, an X, a 1, a 2, or if I really like it, a 3. And this one, it's got too much distraction in the back, so I'm going to hit X. And I will return in just a few minutes. Okay, I am back, and as you can see, I've given my images an X, or 1 star, or 2 stars, and I can scroll down and see everything. Now Basically what I want to do is select only the X images, the images I've put an X on, so I can delete them. And to do that, I come down at the bottom and use a filtering system, and I'll click on the X, and now you can see there's 80 items that I've deemed that I do not want and delete. And then on these I can either do the Control S, which, I'm sorry, Shift S. I'm sorry, Control A. What am I thinking? Jeez. In Windows, Control A selects all. So all of my images are selected. Now I could have selected the first one, scroll down and shift and select the last one. But in this case, I use Control A. And all I have to do is either hit the delete key on my keyboard or right click on any image and select delete. And yes, I want to delete the 80 items. Now, all 80 items are gone. All I have to do is uncheck the X, and I'm down to 33 items. But for this exercise, I don't want to spend the time in editing all 33 items, because some of them I just gave them a 1, some of them I may want to look at them again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a filtering system and select the 2 stars greater or greater than. So when I select on the 2 stars, it narrows it down to 8 items. And that's what I want to work on. And we'll start with this one. I highlight the item, come over, and I'll go into the edit mode. Now, first thing I see is this white distraction up here. So what I want to do is use a retouch brush, come over and select the perfect eraser. I'm using my mouse to scroll up and down the eraser size. And basically, I'm going to paint over this and let On1 do its magic. Now, I don't like this black streak coming across, so I may go smaller and just select just the black streak and see what it does. There, I like that. Now you can always do Control Z to back up one command at a time. Okay, so now at this point I'd like to crop it, so I'm going to hit the C on my keyboard for cropping. Come down, crop in just a little bit. Try to use a rule of thirds. Hit apply. And over on the far right, it's in tone and color. I like to always start with my AI auto. And in some cases it does a good job, other cases it's a little too extreme as far as the blacks. So I'm going to bring my exposure up maybe a little bit, and as far as the middle tones and shadows, I want to bring up the shadows so that way I can see the bird's eye. Okay. Go back to grid, select another one, edit this one, C for crop, bring this one in pretty tight. You know what, this one I'm going to reverse the crop. I want it to be cropped in a portrait style. So that's these 2 arrows up here. Bring it down. This would be good for a magazine cover or something like that. Now in cropping you can also, I have it set for original ratio, But you can select here and change it. You can freeform, original ratio, which is what I have. You can have a 1x1 square, either a 4x5, anything, or you can have custom crops. But I like to keep the original crop of the camera. I'm going to do AI Auto again. Did somewhat of a pretty decent job. I'm going to bring up the shadows. Now that's shot at ISO 200. I'm going to do an F for film strip. The F will bring up the film strip. And let's say I like to work on this thing. So what I'll do is I will crop it first thing. Crop and get this distraction out of the way right here. And that's looking pretty good. Crop up there like that. Apply. I still don't like this, so I'm going to use my retouch and the magic brush. Paint over that. Let's see what happens. It's not too bad. Like that. Boom. Okay. Now I can go into effects. Well, let me go back to develop and use the AI and see how it does. AI Auto. Brighten it up a little bit. Go into effects. I want to add an effect. You have tons of effects. You can go black and white and blur and everything else, but right now I want to do a dynamic contrast, and it really brightened up everything. But what I only want dynamic contrast on the flower and maybe some of these leaves. So I will come over and I'll select on the masking, and I can invert the mask. So that took everything off. You can see the mask is black. So black hides, white reveals. And right here I'm set for paint out, but I want to do paint in. I have a feathering of 26 and opacity at 31. I like a lower opacity when I paint over, so that way it further feathers everything. So I can, I know if I go over the same area 2 or 3 times, 3 or more times, and it'll be up to 100%. So I just wanted to kind of draw your eye to that and the flower. Now I'm going to turn it off and turn it on. Hopefully you can see the difference. I want to add another filter. This time I'm going to add a vignette. And I love the big softy vignette. It does a great job, and I always bring down the feathering all the way to 0 so you can see what it's doing. I like to change the size, and in this case I'm going to change the roundness. You can go to complete, let's go about like that. Well, like that. Change the size, and also you can select on this little box down here, and then you can click and drag your vignette wherever you want. And I want it right over this flower. I'm going to bring my feathering up. And now the thing about vignettes, I'll turn this off and on. The thing about vignettes is you can go too heavy, and in this case I think the vignette is too strong in my taste, in my personal opinion. I like to drop down the opacity. I'll either drop the opacity down to what I like. Excuse me. Or the brightness, I'll bring the brightness up to what I like. Most of the time, I'll just take the opacity and drop it down, and I'll turn the option, the viewing option on and off. And I really like that. So I'm going to select this image. This one I want to do a portrait of the bird. So I'll do my crop, and I'll do horizontal. And I think I'll bring it in close, bring it in like that. I don't want to crop off his apply. Effects, come to effects, use dynamic contrast, boom. This one also, I don't want dynamic contrast on the background, it's just too much, so I'll select on here. Now this time I can invert, and I'll paint in, or I could have done the opposite way. But in this case, I'm just painting in what I want to be nice and sharp. Now, I'll turn it off. I'll add a quick filter, a quick vignette, big softy. Take this down, take the size down, bring the roundness up, place it where I want it, right there. Bring the filter back up, drop down the opacity, off, on, good. And that's pretty much it, folks. Just wanted to show you real quick some of the things that I can we can do with On1 Photo Raw. One more thing is I want to show you. I'm going to go to Develop and Tone and Color. I'm going to go to Sharpening because this thing was shot at ISO 500. Go Noise, and I'm going to use the No Noise AI. Now I find that On1 does a superb job as far as sharpening up and removing the noise from an image. As you can see, it's just really does a good job. And you have adjustments that you can add for the luminous. You can add detail, color. For the sharpen color, you can add sharpening to it to really make it pop, or you can overdo it also. Now if you do adjust something and you want to go back to the default, simply just double click on the word, like detail. If I bring the detail up way too much, if I double click, it'll bring it back to the original default. And then you just hit apply. And in this case, again, I'm going to crop and do it horizontally, vertically. Come up like this, hit apply, go effects one more time, quickly add a vignette, big softy, and there you have it. Thanks guys, I hope y'all enjoyed.